Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip, and we've got another very exciting episode for you today. Today we're talking about all of the drop candidates for week 1. So we're a few days into week 1 now, and we've seen how players have performed and where coaches have moved players in the lineup. Because of some of these things, some players are not as valuable as maybe we initially thought they were. This video is going to be talking about those players and which ones I think that you should drop instead of holding on to. Before we get started though guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate your support. So without further ado, let's jump into some drop candidates for forwards. So first on the list guys is Max Domi, currently 61% owned. And I'm not necessarily saying you absolutely have to drop Max Domi because there's still a pretty good chance that he can have a decent season. Just right now, he's not looking great at all. That second line is doing nothing and he's not getting top power play minutes at the moment. So he doesn't really have the biggest amount of value. Yeah, that second line could find their stride at any time, but do you really want to wait that out? It's up to you. But I think there might be better options on that waiver wire instead of holding on to Max Domi. Next on this list, guys, is Dominik Kubalik, who's done a whole lot of nothing as well through 3 games and is a -2. Those numbers aren't so great, and I don't know if they're going to improve because even with all the injuries that Chicago has, for some reason he's not on their top power play. They're giving Andrew Shaw top power play minutes, and that leaves Dominik Kubalik on that second power play with much worse players, a power play that does not see as much ice time. So for this reason, Kubalik is not ideal right now to have on your team. Now for both Domi and Kubalik, it might be a better idea to try to trade these guys than just outright drop them because you probably picked them relatively high. So if you can trade them for any kind of value, go ahead and do that. Maybe try to scoop up a D'Angelo since he's been benched a couple of games. Trust me, D'Angelo, he's going to have a good season despite being benched in game 2. So next on this list, guys, is Joel Farabee, currently 45% owned. That's crazy. Before the season started, he was like 5% owned. Then he had that monster game in game 1 where he scored 4 points and suddenly everybody picked him up. And I don't really get it because Farabee is playing on that second power play which went off that game, but that second power play is not going to get those kind of opportunities all the time. So yeah, he's going to get decent opportunities playing on that second line with Giroux and Hayes, but I absolutely don't think he should be rostered in 45% of leagues, even though I like Joel Farabee and I think he has some decent fantasy value. Next on this list, guys, and this is the easiest drop of all out of probably anyone on this list, it's Jeff Skinner. Currently owned in 31% of leagues, and I really don't get it. Last year, he had an atrociously bad season, and this year he got pushed even further down the depth chart with guys coming like Taylor Hall and Dylan Cousins. So I don't understand how people thought that Jeff Skinner was going to have a bounce back here. He's not doing very well. He's playing on the third line, and there's no way in hell he has even half decent numbers because he's not getting any top power play time. Drop Jeff Skinner. There's so many better options out there. Next on this list, guys, is Kaapo Kakko, currently 28% owned, and I had him on my list as a potential guy you could scoop up before the week last week. But that was while he was playing on a line with Panarin. After a game or two, the Rangers decided, hey, this isn't working, so they put Kakko back down on that third line where he has very minimal value because he's not getting any top power play time there as well. So Kakko, as much as I like the guy, I don't think he has a whole lot of fantasy value. Next on this list, guys, is Joe Thornton, currently 20% owned. And Joe Thornton was another guy I had on my list of guys that you could pick up, and I actually picked him up myself, thinking that he might have a pretty decent start this season. In 4 games so far, he had 1 good game, scoring a goal and an assist. Now, the reason for this is, yeah, he's playing on the top line with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, and the top power play with Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner. But he's a lot older than them, and he can't really keep up with them. So sometimes, instead of having Thornton out in 5-on-5 play, they actually have Zach Hyman out there instead of him. So he's actually not getting as much ice time as you might think. He's definitely still got some value on that top power play, but right now it seems like the Leafs' second power play with John Tavares is scoring a lot more. He's a decent hold if you're in a really deep league, but other than that, I'd probably consider other options. Next is Brandon Saad, And he was also on my list of guys you could pick up and see how he does. And right now he's not looking that great. He's not getting pretty much any power play time at all, which is what makes his value kind of sink. On that second Colorado line, he definitely still has a little bit of value. But, I think there's much better guys on the waiver wire than him as well. Next on this list, guys, is Jesse Puljujarvi, 13% owned. And I really liked him. I was pretty high on him when Edmonton re-signed him because I assumed they'd be giving him a really good chance to succeed this time. I assumed they'd be playing him with Connor McDavid, but no, they're playing him on a third line with Kyle Turris. I don't really get it. I don't really know why they're deploying him the way they are. He's not getting top power play time minutes either. For this reason, my advice will have to be stay away from Jesse Puljujarvi. Drop him if you have him until the Oilers decide to give him a bigger role. Next on this list, guys, is someone that I had picked up myself because I am a David Pastrnak owner, and that's Jack Studnicka. He started off the season playing with Bergeron and Marchand, so, pretty valuable in that position. He lasted one whole game there, did not even fire a shot on net, finished a -1, and the Bruins, they benched him the next game. The game after that, he was put on a line with Krejci, didn't do anything there either. So honestly, Studnicka does not have too much value right now, and I would absolutely, if you have him, drop him right away because he pretty much has no value right now. Last but not least for forwards, guys, is Tage Thompson, currently only 2% owned. And in the waiver wire video, guys, I told you to keep an eye on him because he was starting the season on a line with Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel. So obviously there was definitely some value there. It didn't last very long, and he's now playing on the fourth line. So if you have him, he's a very, very easy player to drop. All right, so jumping into defensemen to drop, first on the list is Nate Schmidt. And no, I don't think you should drop him in all leagues. I'm not saying that. If you're in a pretty deep league, hold on to Nate Schmidt. But his ownership percentage kind of puzzles me. Last year with Vegas, he had only about a 25% ownership percentage, and that was only later on in the season when people realized that he was a pretty decent player. This year, he's on a worse team on the Vancouver Canucks, and he's at a 57% ownership percentage. Just doesn't make much sense to me. Yeah, he blocks an okay amount of shots. He shoots the puck an okay amount. But really? He's not any more valuable than he was last year. He's playing on a second power play just like he was last year, and he should probably get you a point every 2 games. But to justify a 57% ownership percentage, I'm not really sure if you'll do that. Next on this list is Eric Gustafsson of the Philadelphia Flyers, currently 24% owned. And his ownership percentage before that first game of the season was very low. He just kind of exploded with 2 power play assists that game, and so people decided to scoop him up like wildfire, and to me it didn't really make that much sense. He's a second power play quarterback, so he's going to have some points, but at the end of the day it's a second power play, and it's not going to get as much power play time as the first unit. So yeah, Gustafsson has some value, but probably not as much value as you thought you were getting when you picked him up on day 1. I prefer to drop him. Next on this list, guys, is Ben Chiarot of the Montreal Canadiens, currently 17% owned, and he kind of moved down the depth chart a little bit this season. And if you have him, you probably drafted him to get you some hits, which, yeah, he's been doing. He has 9 hits. But if you want an upgrade, grab Alexander Romanov on the same Montreal Canadiens team. He has 1 more hit than Chiarot does in 3 games. And he has 2 points as well, and he's been shooting a whole lot more than Chiarot too. So if Alexander Romanov is still available on your waiver wire, he's a strict upgrade to Ben Chiarot. And even if Romanov isn't available, there are probably some much better options than Ben Chiarot. Next on this list, guys, currently 11% owned, is someone that I warned against drafting in the first place, and that's Vince Dunn. I don't see how he has that much fantasy value. The Blues' second power play isn't that great, although it seems that Hoffman is on that second power play for now. I'm not sure how long that's going to last because Hoffman is a real sniper and he belongs on that top unit. But anyway, we'll see. At the end of the day, though, that second unit is not going to be getting even close to as much time as the top unit, and Vince Dunn should only be owned in the deepest of leagues. Next on this list, guys, is someone I kind of liked at the beginning of the season, and that's Ethan Bear, currently 6% owned, and I thought he was going to take a step forward this year. But it kind of seems like he's taken a step back. He was scratched in the last Edmonton Oilers game, which is pretty worrisome because their defense isn't exactly the best defensive core in the league. And to make matters worse, when he was in the lineup, he was pretty much getting no power play time at all. So I really don't like Ethan Bear, and if you drafted him hoping that he'd have a really good season, drop him. He's not going to. Alright guys, so next we're going to talk about 4 goalies that I think are pretty decent drop candidates as well. First on the list, guys, is Pekka Rinne, currently 18% owned. And I kind of liked Pekka Rinne going into the season because I thought he was going to get about 1 out of every 3 starts. That's exactly what happened, but Saros absolutely crushed his first 2 starts, and Pekka Rinne kind of sucked. So at best, he's going to get 1 out of every 3 starts, and even when he starts, he's not even going to be that great. So to me, he's not really worth owning, especially on a Nashville Predators team that's not one of the better teams in that division. Next on this list, guys, is Chris Driedger, currently 17% owned, and that number would have made sense if you told me it a few days ago, because Bobrovsky missed the first game of the season and Chris Driedger played. He played very, very well. But now Bobrovsky is healthy, and he's currently signed to a very expensive contract. So if you think that they're going to be starting Driedger pretty often, you're kind of crazy. Unless Bobrovsky gets injured, or there's a back-to-back, or he really, really starts playing badly, Chris Driedger's not going to get a whole lot of starts. Go ahead and drop him. Last but not least, guys, on this list is the worst goaltending tandem in all of hockey, Martin Jones and Devan Dubnyk. They have both not looked so great to start the season, and I don't really think anybody expected them to look all that good. They're on a pretty bad San Jose Sharks team, so if there's any other goaltending options out there, I'd much rather take them over either of these guys. Alright, that's it guys. You've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, let me know how I can improve these videos. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.